The Tabletop Tinker hiatus of 2 weeks is finally over, and what a time it was to take a break, because apparently in my absence, Wizards of the Coast decided, hey, somebody needs to keep putting out fixes to the game. Let's release a whole new edition, or not really edition, a whole new rendition of the game called 1D&D, and with it a whole slew of rules, including some that may leave you Rogue and Paladin players wanting more. Let's break it down as to what it means for you and your games in the future. So I have to say, the problem with taking a break is when you come back, there's a lot of news that's going to come out. And when it comes out, you're going to want to talk about it, but everybody else has already talked about it. Especially when it comes to crits from 1D&D. That's the big news. A lot of changes, some of the biggest changes besides what's going on with player races and ability scores, are going to be to crits. Crits are going to look completely different in 1D&D. Yes, they still happen on a natural 20, but not every natural 20 is going to be a critical hit. If you roll a natural 20 as a player, and especially as a DM, that does not guarantee you the right to have a critical hit with double damage dice. It's only going to be for melee attacks, ranged attacks of the weapon variety, and unarmed strikes. Yay, go monk. However, just because you're a class like a rogue or a paladin that will still get the crit, things will still be very different for you. What do I mean by that? Well, if you break it down and see what it actually says, before in the original rules and the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player's Handbook, as it sits currently published, it specifically states that you roll all the additional damage dice that go along with your attack once you hit. That's a lot of damage, especially if you've got that sneak attack 8d6 extra at the higher levels. Paladins, you've decided to smite. You did a Wrathful Smite last turn. For your bonus action, you're about to lay down the hammer, literally and figuratively. Well, it's going to be a lot less in 1D&D because it specifically states you roll the weapons damage dice. Sneak attack and Divine Smite are not additional weapon damage. They are additional damage onto the original weapon attack. They are not going to be doubled in the amounts rolled along with the traditional weapon dice. That is not going to be the case. That 8d6 is not going to become 16d6. Oh man, what a feeling to roll 16d6 just as additional damage on top of the weapon damage. Those days are going to be long gone. These class features and additional ways to do damage are no longer going to be affected by critical hits. It will just be the dagger for the rogues, or the arrow being drawn and let loose, or in the case of the paladin, a swinging arcing hammer coming down to crush the bones of your enemies. It'll just be the hammer, it'll just be the dagger, it'll just be the bow. Those additional things will not, while still adding their original additional damage, will be unaffected by the critical hit. They will still do their standard static damage. I know that stings a lot. That makes it sound like, well, now we can do a lot less. And yes, some things seem to be getting taken away, to be getting reeled back, to be getting reined in. It seems Wizards of the Coast is going to be drastically overhauling how damage and HP are calculated for a traditional encounter for each and every level. One of the biggest issues that have permeated 5e from beginning till now for almost a decade now has been encounter balance. It is very hard to make an encounter that is both challenging for your players, but also not going to outright destroy them. And the guidelines issued by the Dungeons Master Guide as they sit currently, which I assume will also be changed with the next playtest document released, do not provide any good clarification for anybody, especially not new DMs, people that are just now sitting at the table. There's no shortage of videos out there to try to teach you over time, but it is also something you have to learn and grow. But unfortunately, before you learn and grow, you're just going to have to piss off a lot of your players by accidentally killing them or giving them an unengaging game. I'm being superlative here, but you get the point. It seems to me that by taking out these wild swings in drastic damage, it will be easier overall to make a more balanced encounter. The problem is when you have one character who's dealing out massive amounts of damage, or you have one character who has really low or really high HP, not to say that everybody needs to be in the same realm entirely, but when you have these massive outliers that can do crazy amounts of damage overall, or anything that are just crazy outliers, it makes it harder to make an encounter that's balanced for everybody. By reining in the possibility of numbers that could happen and making those outliers potentially less, it will make balancing the encounter for everybody a lot easier. Yes, when it comes to the players rolling the dice, it's not going to be as impactful. They are trying to offset that with other things like giving you inspiration when you roll that natural 20 to still reward you, but say, let's do it in other ways besides the damage. Clearly, this is an attempt to bring extra balance to encounters. As far as 5e D&D goes, that is something that is drastically needed. It has been called for over and over again. It is also important to remember that none of these rules are happening in isolation. We are getting a small segment of an entire rules overhaul. By the time this is all said and done with, this will be many different parts that, which may seem egregious, separate from one another, when placed together, when we see the full direction of what they're trying to unveil and show us for this new direction, may actually work quite well. Of course, it's hard to say that right now. Furthermore, when it comes to Rogues and Paladins, am I going to be heartbroken that they deal now less damage? No, I'm not. And here's why. Rogues, is there anything that Rogues can't do? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not mad at Rogues. I, in fact, really enjoy playing a Rogue. But having played a Rogue and also DM'd for Rogues, I can tell you, there's not a lot that they can't already do. You want to hit a Rogue? Good luck. As they get higher and higher in level, they get harder and harder to hit. You want to fool them with a skill challenge? Good luck. They're pretty good at all the skills, and they have pretty good ways of getting more and more skills. Not quite bard level, but hey, Skill Monkey is definitely a role that can be fulfilled by the Rogue. When it comes to damage, yeah, they can do that too, with the sneak attack. And by the way, they're not taking sneak attack away, they're just saying when you, on the off chance that you crit, which isn't going to happen very often anyway, it's just not going to be as devastating to completely throw everything out of whack. It's still going to matter, there's still going to be something extra, but being able to crit with that 8 additional damage dice to double that is a little much, is what I am hearing. That's the message that I'm getting. And to me, it's hurting. Same thing with the Paladins. Paladins are known to be one of the best classes in the game, if not the best class in the game. Go look at any class review. Paladins are highly regarded, and for a good reason. They can be healers, they can be tanks, they can deal damage, they can cast spells. And they do a lot of that quite well. It's not that they're a jack of all trades that doesn't do anything very good. They do everything that they do pretty well, and on top of that, they have aura abilities that just affect the entire party in massive buffs that work also very, very well. So if these are the classes that are going to be most affected by the fact that the additional damage dice are not affected by critical hits, well, I think that's actually a really good balance change. If we're trying to rein this in and make it easier to navigate as DMs and players and make the overall experience better, because when you have better and more balanced encounters that are more challenging but are less likely to kill you on accident, it's going to be a better game overall. And when it comes to me, if you're offering a solution that means a better game, well, I'm on board all the way. Initially, yes. Less dice being rolled makes me go, wait a minute, question. But then I ask myself why I'm questioning this. What does this really mean? And when it's broken down to its most basic bits, I think this is actually going to be a really good thing once everything's revealed, which, as we get more and more pieces of the puzzle, we will have a better picture of, but we will not have the clear picture until halfway through 2025, whenever they actually release one D&D. It's going to be in 2024, I apologize, but we're not going to know until 2025, because we're also going to have to play with those final rule sets as well, and there's going to have to be a really big sample size for us to go through to determine, is this actually a good thing? What are just the anecdotes that are happening? And what does this actually mean for the hobby overall? So for now, we can speculate, and we can have the feelings that we want this way or that way about it. But what we should try to do is analyze it for what it's going to mean to the whole of D&D, and what it is that they are trying to accomplish, and if it is going to accomplish that goal or not. and if that goal is a worthwhile one or not. Those are the actual questions. If I believe that their goal is to make a more manageable game with better encounter balance, that is less of a nightmare for new DMs and veteran DMs alike to navigate, if I accept that as a worthwhile goal, and by the reasons I've presented here, the changes, the crits as they pertain to rogues and paladins and their additional damage, if that leads to that goal, that makes it a good change. But you tell me. I'm not in this alone. I'm not the only player of D&D. I won't be the only player of one D&D. So what do you think? Is this a move in the right direction? Do you think this is the actual end goal that they have, or are they moving towards something different? What is the goal as you see it? And what changes do you think they need to make instead of this? Or do you think they need to double down and go further in this direction? You let me know, and we'll have a discussion down in the comments section below. Please like the video to let me know that you made it all the way to the end, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you know on Monday exactly when the next video is going to come out. And until we meet again, keep working towards a better game.